welcome to the Friday Harris Real Estate University Superstar Interview. And as a lot of you frequent listeners know, every Friday we select and invite somebody from the real estate industry to be our featured guest on some Fridays, and other Fridays, Julie and I use that time we have with you to present to you specific information that you absolutely positively need to know about what's going on in the real estate industry. Well, today we have a very special guest. His name is Mr. Allison, and if you guys have attended any real estate conferences or maybe seen him on Fox News, and I think when I was on the Internet last night doing some research on Austin, I found that he's been doing quite a bit of a press junket all over the country, so chances are you've run across this guy. And I forget who it was, Austin, that introduced me to you just recently, but I think it was Amy Stair, maybe?
It was.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Okay, good. Yeah, so Amy. And in any event, Amy, who's a friend of ours, also owns a coaching business, she emailed us and said, you've got to check this guy out. He's got such great technology. It's amazing that no one else is actually doing this, but he is doing it so well. Everybody needs to know about this. This could be a significant shift in the real estate industry. So, is that enough hype, Austin?
That's enough hype. I appreciate it. I hope I can live up to it.
No problem. Well, I'm sure you are. So here's the interesting part. Austin is in our home state, our old home state, rather, of Ohio, and you are in Cincinnati, correct?
Absolutely.
So let's give a little bit of background on you. I mean, you're not some outside technologist that just saw the real estate industry as sort of fertile hunting ground. You actually are somebody who came from the real estate background, or real estate, you were an agent, right?
Absolutely.
And are you an agent?
I'd be glad to give you the...
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm still an agent. I'd be glad to give you the quick intro. I'm actually the furthest thing from a technologist that I could be. I was a real estate agent in the Midwest, in particular Cincinnati, prior to starting this company. And like many real estate agents, it was my goal to automate as much of my life as I could, because there's just not enough time in the day. And I did everything I could to try to figure out how to create 25 hours in the day. That I couldn't figure out. So after being burdened by the inefficiencies in the transaction process, one day the light bulb went off, and I thought that there just has to be a better way to conduct real estate transactions to create more efficiency in my business. So that's kind of how it all came about. I am still a licensed real estate agent in the state of Ohio, not currently practicing, but I still hold the license and have the pleasure of interacting with real estate agents every day.
Well, not only are you a licensee, but you're also, you've started the steps to become an attorney. I mean, you're definitely somebody who's ambitious. You're not resting on your laurels, I guess, is kind of what I want people to understand about you. You're somebody who's kind of forward-thinking in your own life as well as looking at the real estate industry, which is very cool.
I think ADD is the correct definition of that, right?
Exactly. Well, and that's the reason you were drawn to the real estate industry. I think it's a requirement. Adult attention deficit disorders definitely seems to be a requirement. So let's talk a little bit about how you came. We'll get into the specifics about what it is in a second. But I was watching a video you guys put together, and I thought it was really great, and how you were sort of like walking people through typically how real estate transactions are handled and all the inefficiencies. And as I watched it, having sold real estate for a long period of time myself, it was just so spot on accurate with how inefficient it is. So explain to people the idea, the concept, how you came about it, and how they can use it.
Sure. Yeah, funny story. I was just at Retech South speaking a couple weeks back, and I opened up my presentation by talking about myself as being a lazy real estate agent when I was doing business back when I was practicing. And the reason that I say lazy is because I basically utilized technology to automate every single thing that I did. So when I would get a new client, I would input their, and Tim, you're probably going to have a lot to say and scrutinize me for here because it may be contrary to some of what we recommend in the coaching world, but I would literally get my clients and I would program them into my automatic prospecting database within the local MLS. I'd set them up. I'd set up the folders. I'd leave them in my car most of the time. And the prospecting system would send my clients information. I would maintain communication with them via email or text or an occasional call. And they would tell me once they identified properties that they were interested in looking at, they would pre-screen the properties, and I would actually get in the car and drive to tour them once they had pre-screened properties and identified what it was that they were interested in looking at. So I had automated every aspect of my business prior to the showing process. And once we got through the showing process, it came to that point in time that that we all like to see, which is when you create an actual offer on a property. And generally the way that I would do that is I would grab these listing files, or I would pull PDF documents off of the intranet that the broker that I was with made available. I would create this offer document while consulting with my client. I'd get the document signed. I'd send it off to the agent, and all that was pretty seamless for the most part. And then, as you all know, stuff happens. Nobody ever accepts the first offer, and you initiate this snowball effect of all these counteroffers and this dialogue that goes back and forth between all the parties in the real estate transaction. Most of my buyers were first-time home buyers. So these were people who were in college, or both the husband and wife worked, so they were always in different places, and they didn't even know what a fax machine was, the people that I was working with. So I literally found myself driving to their office, driving to their house to get documents signed time after time after time after time, and on a single deal I would spend umpteen hours trying to get this document or this transaction complete, just because of the way that the process worked. So that's how DotLoop kind of came about. We said, all right, I bank online, I trade stocks online, and looking at the trends that are taking place in the industry now, 95% or 94% of buyers are comfortable starting their process online. So why can't we take out some of this inefficiency? And that's kind of how it all came about, and our goal was to automate that process. We didn't want to change the process that a real estate agent takes to conduct a transaction. We just wanted to automate it to eliminate all the back and forth, to eliminate the driving, which ultimately was designed to result in efficiency for not only the agent, but a value add for the clients. So now the agents have the ability to position themselves differently than other agents in the marketplace, and I think that's kind of what brought us together. This is a tool that truly allows a real estate agent to look better in front of their clients, because it saves the buyers and sellers time throughout the process as well.
Well, so let me ask you some specific questions, just because I think people are going to think this is more complicated than it actually is. What you are essentially doing, I guess if you look at it, as I was watching your video last night, I was kind of laughing, because the real estate industry has to be the only industry that still uses a fax machine.
Yeah.
That was occurring to me how inefficient it is, because we all hustle around trying to get faxes signed, and I got an important fax coming in, the rest of it. And you're absolutely, 100% spot on that every other industry, it's done electronically. So let's talk specifically. Let's look into the mechanics of this, and then we're going to talk about how agents can integrate this into the business. But specifically, Austin, what we're going to focus on is how they can use this information in this system to essentially set themselves apart from their competition, and how it's definitely going to be advantageous to them when trying to win more business. Guys, I did put a link, a little button on the webinar that you can click over to watch a video presentation, and then ask for more information from Austin. This service, by the way, that he provides is what I prefer. I think it's painfully inexpensive. How much is this per month?
$20 a month is the most you'll ever pay.
Yeah, so what this does, basically, these are from what I could see from thinking as an old agent and an old broker's perspective. Here's what I liked about it. Julie was a broker, so I like the fact that all the paperwork is online. I like the fact that all the paperwork, every single form, every single disclosure form, every single counteroffer and everything is there for everybody to see. I like the fact that all the paperwork is stored in a digital format, and I don't have to wait around, for another agent to send it over to me, or from a broker. I don't have to wait around for an agent to turn in a piece of paperwork. I like the fact that, I'm just thinking from an errors and omissions standpoint perspective, lots of, I'm sure, claims are made on E&O insurance just because people can't come up with a specific form. The other thing I liked about your system, which I thought was very efficient considering a lot of our agents are doing literally hundreds of transactions per year, is that if there's a missing form, or if something's not, if the other side hasn't signed something or whatever, your system will notify all parties concerned that this form needs to be signed, and it's, obviously the transaction has to be completed with with all the paperwork. Did I miss anything?
No, you pretty much covered it.
Okay.
The one thing that I'd like to describe, you asked about the way that the process actually works, and it is pretty easy to overcomplicate. In simple language, the way that a real estate agent would utilize this service is they log on to create an offer or to create a listing. They would just click Start New. From there, it's going to allow them to select the forms that they want to utilize throughout this transaction, and then they add their client to the property. That's it. In 3 steps, you're looking at the form, and once you input the information just like you would today in the real world, all you do is click a button. You don't have to print. You don't have to fax. You click a button, and the system does the work for you. So it notifies all your clients, and then throughout the entire process, it keeps you in the loop. So if you're doing hundreds of transactions, that's exactly right. It notifies you throughout every step of the process when your client signs a form, if something's missing, and it even allows you to bring other people into the loop. So you can bring other parties. You can have an assistant that manages the information. You can have multiple agents working on the same deal. So it's very scalable and robust in that respect.
So it's $20 no matter how many deals I'm pushing through it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. All right. So the actual use of it. So I'm a realtor, right? And I'm in Ohio. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, our old hometown, not so far from where you are right now, probably. So I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I am absolutely buried with all this paperwork, and this guy is spot on accurate. I am so sick of having to deal with the faxes and the inefficiencies. Even if the paperwork's all provided to me in a nice zip form from my MLS, that stuff still needs to be printed and signed and faxed around. It's ridiculous. So let's tell them basically and describe to them how easy the integration actually works. Austin, from a normal, transactional standpoint, normally you reach for your packet of paper and start filling it out and getting the paperwork signed. Tell them how it's different. Tell them what happens.
Sure. From here, you would have an account that could be accessible directly from your intranet through a link or whatever it is that you use today, or you could log right on at dotloop.com, and you take the steps that I just described to initiate a transaction. To get set up initially, if this is something that you think makes sense for your business, you can log on directly at dotloop.com, click Try It Now. A member of our team will be contacting you to get your account set up. Depending on where you're at and when you log into the system, the initial account setup could take anywhere from 7 to 30 days in extreme cases, and from there you'll be ready to go. So that's pretty much it.
You're taking all their normal forms and you're digitizing them so they could all be filled out online. So that's not just a simple process. In some cases, if you haven't done that already for a specific state's forms, that's actually quite a bit of work, right?
That's correct.
Making it into a web form or whatever.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Cool. All right, so then what happens? How do I I think it's great, right? I think this thing's awesome. I'm writing an offer on a listing agent's property, or, somehow I initiate the transaction. But the other side, they're like, they love their fax machine. They love their paper. How do I get them to work with me using this new system? How does that work?
Well, we've given you several options. So now that you've created the document and you've got this file stored in dotloop.com and you go to send it to the other agent, when you click send, it asks you to input the listing agent's email address. So if you have a listing agent that at least has email access, the system will automatically send them the files to be printed and will also include online access to the transaction. So let's say now we're the listing agent on the other side of the deal. I have 2 options. I can print the documents directly from that email, just like I would if this were a fax or an e-fax or a scan in an email. Option number 2 is clicking one button to see the document in interactive format. So the listing agent on the other end doesn't have to pay a penny. They don't have to complete a robust registration. All they do is click a button, input their name, and they have the ability to modify this collaborative document anywhere with internet access. So those are the 2 options. If you're working with REO in an REO situation where the asset management company still requires faxed in documents, the system accommodates that as well. So you could send directly, not only online, but you could send to a fax directly from the system. So you don't have to print the documents out, then fax them over. It'll go right from the system. You click send a fax, input the fax number. The system takes care of the rest from there.
Very cool. And so how is this handled with signatures? I mean, agents don't necessarily understand digital signatures. I don't necessarily understand digital signatures. So how is this legal? How does someone sign it? So if I'm sitting at Starbucks with my iPad, okay, let's make this real, right? I'm sitting at Starbucks with my iPad. I'm a realtor. I just showed houses, and I've got a buyer that's really interested in the house. So take it from there. How do I actually pull it up? How would I initiate the signatures? Take me through the whole process.
Perfect. the way that you would do that, and actually first, let me describe how electronic signatures are legal, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Okay. Electronic signatures are a legal theory, a legal doctrine that basically says that if two parties want to do business electronically, they can take an action to represent a signature. So these digital signatures are represented in all different formats, and everybody on this call electronically signs something probably every day. Every time you log on and click, I agree to the terms and conditions. Every time you buy a book at Amazon.com, every time you go online to transfer money through your online banking site, you are electronically signing something. An email with a signature in the subject line in the eyes of the law is also an electronic signature. So this started in the year 2000, where the Clinton administration created a law called the Electronic Signatures in Global and National Commerce Act that basically says that an electronic signature cannot be denied solely because it's electronic. So every other industry besides real estate embraced it. Now the real estate industry is starting to embrace electronic signatures quicker than we could have ever imagined. So the electronic signatures are legal in all 50 states because of this piece of legislation. There are certain states, very few, that require certain documents that have to be recorded to have physical signatures. So there are situations where electronic signatures are not legal on documents that have to be recorded. And the last point is that the FHA recently, on April 8th, announced that electronic signatures are now legal and binding on all FHA transactions, which was a huge movement and indication of where the industry is going with respect to electronic signatures. So in our system, it's absolutely, we're excited about it. And in our system, it's the act of inputting the password and checking the disclosure and clicking a button that says e-sign. That forms an electronic signature. So that leads me into how this actually works. So you've created this contract, and your clients are on wherever. They're at work, they're at home.
Well, no, let's make it, Allison, let's use a real example. Okay, so it's tomorrow. I'm in New Albany, Ohio. I just got done showing houses to somebody in Westerville or Gahanna or New Albany. It doesn't matter where. They're reload buyers. They're ready to go. They're buying something for like $420,000. Found the perfect house. My office is clear across town. These people have to rush back to the airport to fly back home because they were only here to buy a house over the weekend. Okay, that's a real life. Happens every single day in our business scenario. Now, how do I use your system to make it so that I can write an offer faster and more efficiently, and obviously help me sell more homes?
Sure. So you're done showing this property. You log onto the system and take the steps that I've described previously. So in 5 minutes, you've got all the documents prepared because it pre-populates everything for you. So you've got all these documents prepared and ready to go. So let's look at it two ways. Say your client's getting ready to go back to the airport, and you guys are sitting at Starbucks. Is that what you described previously?
Sure.
So they're sitting at Starbucks. You click send on DotLoop.com. DotLoop sends your client an email. So your client just logs into their email. They click one button from their email, and on their page will automatically appear these documents that you just created for them. They approve every page by clicking continue. Once they review and approve the pages, they input the password that they created when they logged in, and they click this e-sign button, and they're done. Option number two, say your client is late for their plane ride, and you're at Starbucks finishing up your paperwork because they're on their way back to the airport, and your client has the iPad or the iPhone or a BlackBerry in their car. You take the same step as the real estate agent, so you click send. From there, your client could be on their BlackBerry, receive this email, click a button, review the document while they're driving to the airport, input their password, and click e-sign, and you've never taken a minute out of their day. So that's how it's used in the real world.
Very cool. So, but back to, a real basic example. If you're just sitting there with your iPad at Starbucks, everyone's having their espresso or what have you, you could just essentially pull up I assume your system works on iPad, or are you guys still working on that?
Yes. It works on basically it's optimized for anything with the browser.
All right, cool.
We don't have an iPad-specific app yet, but
the realtor, no worries. We'll just use a computer as an example. So the realtor pulls out their computer, right there, essentially fills out all the details for the contract, By the way, when you're inputting the details of the contract, the price, the bedrooms, the chattel that's included, all that good stuff, how does that happen? Are there boxes that pop up that ask questions and it automatically populates the form where everything's supposed to go, or do you have to kind of like scroll through the document and click here and enter information? How do you work that?
Scroll through the document. It'll look just like the documents that you utilize today. So it captures the basic information and populates it through address, buyer's name, listing agent's name, brokerage. It'll populate all the stuff that it has, and then it requires you to scroll through the document just like you would in paper format and fill out the contract that way. Okay, good. And so the time it takes to write an offer and to get your signature, get the signatures from, in this example, the buyers, I mean, it's cut in half, if that. It's so much easier. And again, getting back to the iPad example, because I think the iPad, and I'm sure, Austin, you agree, the iPad's going to revolutionize a lot of the ways that realtors do business, as road warriors, basically. But, you whip out your iPad, so you want to make an offer, boom, click, your DotLoop app, and then you're off to the races. I mean, it's going to be very simple and a lot quicker to handle transactions. And I was thinking as you were talking, so if I have a buyer's agent, this is going to be a brilliant way to keep the buyer's agent organized, because the buyer agent, obviously, as a team leader, a lot of you guys struggle with the fact that, oh my gosh, are these people even getting all the paperwork collected? Are the forms being filled out correctly? You're constantly worried about your exposure every time you add a licensee under your errors and omissions insurance. And what this does essentially is like a always on office manager checking to make sure they're filling out the forms and making sure they're getting everything signed. So I really like that aspect of it. So let's you and I talk. And let me actually, Julie, can you check the webinar, see if there's any questions, please?
Yeah. Basically, you guys handled them about the wet signatures, about making sure that even if your co-op agent isn't up to speed with this, that you can get them set up. And what I was thinking was, about the always having to have a backup file with your broker. This takes care of that, as you were mentioning, Tim. So I think that this is covering a lot of bases with one widget, which I always like in real estate, but I'm going to go scan through some more questions for you. Okay, yeah, we have a lot of questions. Yep. I just took a glance. Yeah, so that is the other nice aspect of it. Julie just reminded me, Austin, you store all the paperwork at, in digitized format. How does that work? For how long? How does that work?
We store the documents for the state-required minimum. So that's actually part of electronic signature legislation. That's just part of the package that we have to maintain the information for you. So it's a great tool for that, and for the team leads and the brokers on the line, that's the big picture benefit at the end of the day. It's convenience, it's time savings for the agents and the buyers and sellers. But then DotLoop does become this virtual office for everything that you do. So now you've got the documents maintained for as long as you need them. Your clients have access to their documents for as long as you need them. Some agents are even inputting links from their websites directly so that the clients could come back to the agent's website at any point in time and get access to the documents that were created on a prior transaction.
Okay, so now you're touching on a really potentially fantastic USP. So I'm thinking to myself, as you and I are talking, Austin, as an agent, I totally get it why I'd want this, right? I totally understand how it's going to save time. I don't have to have those boxes full of old contracts that I seem to keep forever, and I don't know exactly how long I'm supposed to keep them, and I'm paranoid to throw them out. As I was saying that, I was just laughing at myself because Julie and I literally have deal files from when we were selling real estate in Ohio, and we haven't sold real estate full-time in Ohio.
I'm so tired of moving those things, I can't tell you.
I know, I'm just laughing. So anyway, this will, and from a broker's perspective, if you're a broker and you're selling hundreds and your agents are selling hundreds, if not thousands of transactions per year, well, this is the cost savings alone from not having to hassle with those boxes and the paperwork is insane. I feel sorry for all the self-storage businesses around the United States. How many of them are going to have financial problems now that all the paperwork's digitized? All right, so now I'm thinking from an agent's perspective, trying to create this as a selling proposition, or trying to show their potential sellers or their potential. I mean, I get it from the buyer's perspective, but from a seller's perspective, how is this an advantage? You mentioned the fact that at any time in the future, and a seller can go back to, or a buyer or the other side, co-op or whatever, can go back. If an agent sets this up, this is not part of DotLoop, but lots of agents are setting up like this. they can go to your website as an agent or a broker, click on a button, and I'm sure it'll be passcode protected somehow, and then print out all the relevant paperwork from their transactions. Now, how cool would it be as a agent who's trying to keep in contact with your centers of influence and past clients to make it so that people are going back to the website, your website, every month? So maybe what you do is you start including, like you make it so they'll go back to your website for an updated CMA every single month. And, so quarterly maybe they're going and having a review of what their property taxes is worth. Maybe every single year when it's time for you to go and contest your property tax values, as a lot of people are becoming a very heated debate all over the country, maybe that same little button where you're going to load up all the DotLoop documents from the real estate transaction, maybe that same little button serves as a place where the seller can download all the paperwork necessary to contest their property tax valuation in their particular, state. There's lots and lots of ways that what this will do, guys, is raise the communication, increase your service to your clients, and service is a word that's so overused, but this is a very definition of the type of service that buyers and sellers are looking for. Austin, how else are you seeing your top producers use this evolution of technology? I'm not going to call it a revolution because it's really not. It's more of an evolution, something that, frankly, should have happened like 100 years ago, right?
Yep.
So how else are you seeing people use it, other than just the way it's described? How are you seeing them use it?
Sure. Well, in addition to transparency, I think people are leveraging this as an opportunity to set themselves apart from other agents in the marketplace, because whether or not you're a seller or a buyer, the transparency is absolutely important, the stuff that you just described, but the time savings is important for multiple reasons. And now I could come into a listing presentation, or I could come in to present to a buyer, and I could represent myself as having the ability to save my client time throughout the process and basically be there as a resource, which is why we as real estate agents are so valuable in the first place. We take a complicated process and we do all the work for the buyers and the sellers. So the time savings aspect is strong, and it also facilitates an easier transaction. So it makes it easier for people to submit offers on your property. It frees up the agent to give the agent more time to go out and market your property, and you can take advantage of this transparency to position it on all different levels. Other ways that agents and producers are utilizing this technology just vary in the complexity, really. Some use it to simply automate their form creation process so that they're finding that fillable PDFs on the intranet or fillable PDFs on their desktop just aren't efficient enough for them, because they have to go through and essentially reinvent the wheel every time, save the documents, create folders, know where they saved all the information. So some agents are just utilizing this to speed up the actual offer creation process, and they're not even taking advantage of the electronic signatures yet. Other agents are obviously taking it through the entire loop, where you can utilize the electronic signatures. Others utilize it for CRM to some extent. Now, the CRM functionality was never designed, nor is it ever going to be as robust as a top producer or something like that, but it does include basic access to your client online, anywhere, anytime, basically free of charge, included in the package. You can create tasks, reminders, keep history of all your clients. So agents are using it for that as well.
Well, let me help. So I got a great comment in here, and this is from one of our agents who I know used to have a big traditional, actually a broker, used to have a big traditional brokerage. It's like 300 or 400 agents, and because of and they had a big A space in Southern California. I know who this broker is. Asked me not to use their name, but I think it's important that I read the comment. It's a comment, not a question, but I'm going to read it and not use their name so I don't have to expose who it is. But in any event, so he's telling me how basically he has essentially scuttled, or is in the process of scuttling, his retail, expensively, fancy marble-clad floored location, and he's making all of his agents go virtual. And he said that a lot of the agents can adapt to that. But I'm thinking as you're talking, this guy needs this service because of the fact that obviously as having an army of virtual agents out there that aren't centralized around a specific place to collect paperwork and such, an office, a traditional real estate environment, this is a no-brainer. And again, as he's trying to attract more agents to his office, okay, as this broker tries to expand his virtual model, he can explain to them, his potential agents, his potential recruits, explain to them and show them the technology that they offer via Dotloop, and that gives that broker an interesting selling proposition when they're recruiting other agents. I mean, so there's so many different ways. And, again, as I say this, it just seems so goofy that no one's done this before, but, man, great job for taking the initiative on this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a great comment, and that actually, to elaborate on what you described a little bit earlier, which is the cost savings in the paper, the reason that we've been able to grow is that right there. It's cost savings for brokers in an environment where cost savings is king. So this virtual brokerage model not only accommodates the nature of a lot of agents today who like to be mobile, who like to work from home or on the road, but it also accommodates today's buyers as well. So ultimately, the broker has the ability to recruit stronger agents, retain agents by providing them with the latest and greatest tools that will simplify their lives. And as a result, they're going to save money. I mean, office space isn't cheap. The overhead associated with operating a real estate brokerage is certainly nothing to bat your eyes at. So that's a very strong comment there. Appreciate that.
So we had a great question from Doug in Findlay, Ohio. I'm just going to skip to the question part. Does it support listing agreements and addendums including property disclosures? And I mean, Doug's on to something here. I mean, can you do the listing end of it this way?
Yes, you can. Now,
okay, so let me stop you right there. So all of you out there who are in the CDPD short sale class, and we ask you to email all the short sale documents, the package as it is, our Harris Real Estate University, our package to your potential sellers when we're teaching you how to list houses over the phone without having to go see the seller's home. And some of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you're thinking to yourself, what? Not go on listing appointments? Harris Real Estate University CDPDs, you know what I'm talking about. Most of the listing aspects of doing short sales can be done over the phone, saving yourself a lot of time. And we ask you to email the PDFs and have the seller send you the PDFs back. And I know a lot is lost in translation. That's not necessarily the most efficient perspective of that, or aspect of that, because you have to wait around for the sellers to not only fill out the forms, but then FedEx them, fax them, or mail them back to you. Now, what I'm hearing from Austin is that he can, now obviously you have to be a subscriber to a service, it's only $20 a month. He can make it so that you can upload, and Austin, if you're not doing this, if I'm walking you into a corner here, it's still a great idea, so you'll have to do it. Upload a complete short sale package. We have a short sale package, Austin, that's basically universally accepted by all the banks. And so when you have that potential seller that's a short sale, they can basically have access to that paperwork and then sign it digitally and complete it digitally. And that is right there, an enormous time saver. So I'm thinking of all you guys out there that have hundreds of short sale listings, you absolutely positively need to get with Austin on Dotloop and take advantage of this. So did I just add a feature to your service?
No. It's
good.
A slight variance, but yeah, functionality is the same.
Okay, good. So literally, you can have a seller sign the listing agreement, to Doug's question in Findlay, Ohio. You can have the seller sign the listing agreement and everything else via Dotloop, and it works the same way. Click a button, and it's automatically digitally transferred back to the listing agent. Works the same way.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome, man. I love it. All right, Julie, what other questions do you have?
Sarah in Phoenix wants to know is there a way to highlight the signature lines? Does it come that way? Can they get in there and modify that so that they don't have to keep going back and resending to the seller saying, hey, check out all of the signature lines?
I'm not sure that I'm following you. I guess what it does is it highlights anything that this is actually, you may be coming to a slight variance in the way that this technology works with respect to the way that transactions are conducted in paper format. The way that it works is an electronic signature is attached to an entire document. So because this document is all interactive and virtual, every time a field is changed, the system highlights that field that had been changed. And then when somebody signs it, it acknowledges and basically signs all the contents of that form that they're signing at the time. So the system will highlight every single change that had been made throughout the process, but it actually steps the client to a signature page at the end of the review process. So if there's two signatures on a page, it will separate that document and it'll run them through two separate signatures. So it does automate the process in such a way that it's pretty obvious what you're signing when you're signing it. So I don't think.
So Austin, I understood Julie's question. You answered it, but let me sort of break it down so that it's Tim Simple, and that's what we call it, the Harris Real Estate University. Tim Simple is translated something that everyone can understand. So the way I'm visualizing this is I'm sitting there with my buyer. They're writing an offer. They've already signed on. They've already clicked the I agree with regards to the digital signatures, the whole 9 yards. So the Dotloop automatically populates essentially when you go through the contract with them. They read it, they understand it. You're sitting there with your iPad or your computer or whatever, and then at the end they just essentially click a box. And that box essentially, this isn't exactly how it works, but essentially it goes back through the contract and makes it so they've essentially signed legally all the aspects and all the little signature marks and all the little places they're supposed to put their initials all the way through the contract. Is that correct?
Yes, that's Tim Simple.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you can use that for future presentations. So basically, they only have to click it once, and it basically autofills all the spaces in the contract where they should have signed, initialed, or put their thumbprint, or eye retinal scan, or God knows what else they decide to do.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking also from a transaction coordinator standpoint, they're going to be loving life because this is better in a way. This makes it harder to miss signatures than doing it the old-fashioned way. I mean, how many times have you guys on the call gotten another call or a fax or an email from your co-op agent saying, I got everything except for page 17B.
Or they lost it. Or the fax machine ate it.
It's crazy, right? So this can fix some of those issues. Let's see, we have a question from someone about board-specific forms. So, for example, Columbus Board of Realtors is different than Cincinnati Board of Realtors. So is it board-specific?
Yes, what we do is we make any form available to you that you utilize today. So Dotloop is a channel of communication. You as an agent have the ability to send information via fax, via email, or now via Dotloop. So we take your forms, whatever forms you use in your location, and we just make them available in an interactive format. So we are not a form software. We do not go and market to the Columbus Board of Realtors, for example, to make their forms available to all the members. But if you're using the Columbus Board of Realtors forms, you're going to upload those onto the system so that you can use them through the site. So you control what forms are utilized, whether they're board-specific, company-specific. Mm-hmm. If you want to use a napkin, you could use a napkin on the site as well.
You know what's cool about that is I'm also thinking if you take that to the next step, and I remember, Tim, when you and I used to occasionally show for sale by owners and we would have them swear on their document that we created that they would indeed pay the commission that they claimed they would pay.
Yeah.
So I think what I hear you saying, Austin, is that if I had a form that I was using personally, as maybe a standard counteroffer that I use on short sales, something like that I can upload that and put that on my own personal system so I can use that every time. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I like this.
That's
good.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, Julie, I was thinking back when you and I had 6 buyer's agents and Rochelle was running all the buyer's agents. If I can just I have this vision in my head of all of them having their iPads, right? And going out there working with their buyers, and then they're showing houses on giving the buyers are seeing, previewing on the iPad the next house they're going to see and the rest of it. When they finally get around to wanting to make an offer, there it is right there.
Ready to go.
Exactly.
Well, and remember all those lists of missing paperwork that I used to have to send them and threaten them with death, get the stuff in or no commission for you?
Well, I mean, I was thinking
lots of good things
I was thinking about the Keller Williams offices.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, so you guys at Keller Williams offices, let's just be honest here, love your paperwork. There's more checklists and forms and disclosure forms when you're a Keller Williams agent. And how do we know? Because Julie is a Keller Williams agent. But the paperwork that's required is incredible. It just absolutely is incredible. Not all of it's required by your state or your city. This is just a lot of, CYA stuff that the broker's doing. Well, brokers, getting all that paperwork back, that's basically a full-time job for an agent that's doing any kind of volume. And you know as well as I do that chasing all this paperwork, how much time does your office manager, your transaction coordinator waste just leaving voicemails and emails about missing forms? This Dotloop system, this is the reason we thought it was so great when I heard about it from Amy not so long ago. This DotLoop system literally transforms the way that all that interaction is done.
Well, it could enable an agent to do more deals, Tim. I mean, just in
Absolutely.
the time savings alone, I always feel like you almost need a paperwork assistant anymore with all these different laws, especially some of you guys in Washington State, you guys have tons of laws up there, lots of legal disclosure. So, I think that this captures a lot of these issues that we all deal with on a daily basis and can be a huge time saving. Some of you guys will do twice the transactions if you would just organize the paperwork the way Austin's talking about.
Well, Julie, just think about this. So you have this whole DotLoop system, right? It's $20 a month, so I might spend $240 on it a year. How much money am I saving in paper and ink from not having to feed my fax machine?
You're spending that on ink anyway. So, it's amazing. Now, to that point, I do have quite a few questions here for Austin about and I understand where these agents are coming from. They just feel like they need to have some kind of a backup to your backup. Can you create a CD to cover this? Can they print out these documents? If they get, paperwork insecure and they just want to touch it, can they print that out?
Anytime. There's a huge orange button on every single page within a loop. Anytime. Click one button and you've got the package of forms. You can print off, it is an entire package with the complete revision history of every single thing that had been changed or modified on that document. You can export it as a PDF. You can do that at any point in time. It's all right there.
That's excellent. I love that. I'm just, from a transactional standpoint, my mind is going crazy, all the things that used to slow us down. So I think this is great. And to Tim's point, should have been invented 100 years ago. Where were you back when we were cranking all those deals? But I'm glad you're there now.
Well, not to embarrass Austin, but I believe he's 23.
Oh, well, don't answer that then.
24.
Oh, he's 24. I remember when Julie and I started selling real estate when we were actually younger than you. You always said you were in your, you always wanted to add an extra year, but Austin, I have a little secret for you. There's nothing obviously wrong with being in your 20s and being successful. I mean, that's fantastic. But when you're in your 30s, even when you're like 38 or Julie's 39, you don't say you're in your late 30s. You say you're in your 30s.
Yeah, it changes right
out there. It changes. The pendulum swings the other way. It'll happen for you too if you're lucky. All right, good. Julie, any other questions we can go through?
Hey, maybe a special request. I have some questions regarding working with REOs and short sales. And though the law does state, and I love that you had that ready to rumble for the electronic signatures, that yes, in all states this is now legal. Do you have or could you upload that law? Because what I'm thinking is some of these guys are submitting their short sale packages to the lenders, and some of these negotiators don't know that law, and their automatic response is, well, we don't accept anything except for actual signatures. If it was me and I was cranking out a bunch of short sale transactions, I would just attach a little copy of that law saying you're going to accept my electronic signatures.
Actually, Austin, I'll take Julie's question. I'll take Julie's question. Yeah, I'll take Julie's question to the next level. And Austin, you ought to do this for sure. Equator is basically a portal that virtually all the banks are going to be using, that starting with Bank of America, and then there's a lot of other banks that are going to be using it as well, where they're essentially telling agents that if you want to submit a short sale offer on any of our properties, you have to submit it through Equator. So in other words, you have to log on, get a username, password, and then fax, believe it or not, all your paperwork up to Equator. You guys should be contacting Equator, obviously, and getting them to utilize this technology. I think that would be a huge time saver, not to mention the efficiency that comes from not having actual, fax documents. So just heads up to that. That's kind of what Julie's question was, I think.
Perfect. Will do.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions, Julie?
Tom in Littleton says, if I receive an offer on my listing from another agent, can I upload it to the system and then continue the transaction paperless? I think the answer is yes, Austin, right?
Yes, the answer is yes. But what you do in that situation is it would work similar to some of the other electronic signature softwares out there, in that you drag fields onto the PDF and you essentially make the PDF signable at that point. So it's not quite as smooth as the completely interactive transaction, but yeah, you could still be completely paperless. The other thing that we're actually getting ready to release in the next version is a feature that will allow you to invite a buyer's agent. So if you've got a buyer's agent that wants to submit an offer on your property and they're not yet a DotLoop subscriber, you could click one button and you could automatically allow them to send you information interactively, so you don't even have to take the step of dragging on the fields to make your document signable. So there's several different ways to accommodate that.
That definitely wasn't Tim Simple, but I think I get what you're saying. So here's a valid question that someone from Florida asked. What happens if someone doesn't have email? I mean, if the parties to a transaction don't have email, they really can't use this platform, correct?
That's correct. You just use it as a form software at that point. You use it to store the file, so you'd still have all your records stored electronically, but just click print. So instead of sending it online, click print, create the document. It still saves you all the time in the document creation process, or send it via fax.
Well, you can
click
fax
one button from the system and fax it.
Yeah, let's make that really clear. So if you're in a situation where one of the parties doesn't have access to email, or frankly they just might not be comfortable with this process, you can still go on to DotLoop as an agent, complete the paperwork, do everything you're supposed to do to initiate the sale, and then literally from DotLoop fax them. Guys, think about this. Fax them the paperwork and the offer. So it just shows up on their fax machine and they can fax it back to you. Now I'm just sort of curious, when they fax it back to you, does it fax back into DotLoop and stay part of that same system, or does it come back to them on a separate number?
It depends on how they fax it. If they fax it back into the DotLoop universal fax number, it will come back into your file because there's a transaction code that's input on the bottom of each form. If they fax it back to your eFax directly, you would then just have to add that as an attachment by browsing for it.
Well, that's very cool. So this literally is going to make it so that finally we can have virtual offices, virtual agents, virtual brokers. You know, this is, in a lot of ways, this has been the thing that many of us have been looking for, in a way to set agents free and get rid of a central processing location. You could even hypothetically, for a whole state, have one office in some, B or C location where you have people that are doing all the state-required paperwork collection. Because, well, that actually is an interesting question. Many states, as you know, and I think Ohio is one of the most stickliest of all of them, requires that, paperwork be stored. And you're telling me that the digitized forms of that paperwork is acceptable by all states now, or is there any resistance on that?
Yes, that is why the electronic signature law exists. You cannot deny, and there's all kinds of case law on this as well, but yes, the electronic storage is sufficient for state purposes.
Okay, that's a home run. I just don't see any, as a former agent, and Julie was a former broker, I just don't honestly see why anyone wouldn't use this. I cannot see any resistance whatsoever to not wanting to use this. Julie, can you?
No, and I have a lot of questions about how do I sign up? What do I get for $20? What are there upgrades? If I'm a broker and I want to put 5 of my agents on this, what do I get? How do I sign up? How does all this work?
Sure. You sign up at dotloop.com or by calling 1-888-DOTLOOP. If you sign up at dotloop.com, somebody will be in touch with you. If your broker's not already set up in the system, somebody will be in touch with you to automate that process once you sign up. For $20 a month, that buys you a monthly seat license. So if you have multiple members in your team and you want multiple members to have access to this, you're going to pay $20 per month per head. If they each have their own separate accounts. So that's how the pricing works. You get everything for that $20 a month. In the future, there will be more robust upgrades available, but right now you get everything that we've been talking about and more for $20 a month with unlimited transactions.
And so if I leave my broker, I take that with me.
Right,
yep.
There you go.
Right.
You take all your digitized paperwork with you if you leave your broker, is what she's asking you.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, good. So there was another question that just came in from Susie, actually, which I thought was really good. So Susie from Tulsa, this is, just to clarify, she's asking, can the paperwork be board-specific? And all of it is, Susie, and that's the reason that he's saying, that's the reason Austin is saying is when you become a member of this, or what do you guys call them, subscribers, members, agents, what do you call them?
Subscribers.
Okay, when you become a subscriber of DotLoop, it's not, you don't just log in and then all of a sudden start doing all your, though I suppose in some cases you do have the board forms and such already as part of your system, but for the most part, an agent's going to have to send you guys all the specific forms that are part of a transaction, and then you guys go through the process of laboriously converting those to a format that'll work, through a digital format, right? I mean, it's not just, they can't just click a couple buttons. That's the reason that they have to go through the process of talking with you guys and making sure all the paperwork's correct, right? Am I missing something?
That is correct, yes. That's the catch right there. It just takes some time to get uploaded.
Well, a year from now when you guys have zillions of subscribers, then it won't really make a difference because you'll probably have the paperwork from virtually every state board, MLS, and so forth. But, guys, remember, even though your MLS, generally speaking, your MLS is going to have, a package of required forms that's maybe, what would it be, probably a half-inch tall. Most brokers are going to have a stack of forms that's going to be, an inch and a half tall. So make sure when you sign up with this DotLoop system, make sure you're using all the paperwork that your broker requires, because sometimes what's happening, guys, is the errors and omissions insurance companies are encouraging the brokers to collect extra stuff just to do a little extra CYA. So make sure when you're integrating this into the DotLoop system, your existing paperwork, you use the correct forms that come from your broker. And if you are a broker, you might want to ask other brokers if they're adding any forms or whatever else, because before, as an agent, when you're writing an offer, and you got to go through 47 forms, by the time you get to the last form, that buyer could have very well lost interest or be annoyed with how annoying, the process is, and everyone's kind of threatened and intimidated by the real estate transactions. So with all these added forms, it really does add an extra level of stress, especially if you're doing it in the old school way. Using the DotLoop system, you can email them the forms, they can read the forms at their leisure, and then they can just click one little box and boom, everything's automatically signed. Much more efficient, much more in tune, which was Austin's point earlier, with how buyers and sellers actually want to do business with you guys. I mean, you're shopping off Amazon, aren't you? You're looking at everything online. You're creating relationships and buying stuff online. Well, what we're doing now, what Austin's doing now is he's basically saying, hey guys, let's go ahead and apply the fact that people want to be buying and selling, want to be initiating transactions on the internet, on systems like this, and let's just use that to our advantage, and that will create in your marketplace a nice little point of differentiation for yourself. Julie, any other closing thoughts or questions?
No, I mean, I think a lot of these things probably, if I'm guessing, could be answered by just signing up. It's $20 a month. Well, our job as your coaches is to bring you things that will make you more efficient. All of our frequent listeners know that we're all about bang for the buck. So most of what we bring you is either free or real inexpensive with a lot of benefit to it. So, we wouldn't be bringing you Austin today if we didn't believe in it. I think a lot of these questions will be answered by just starting to use it. It's kind of like Top Producer. Seems like a big pain in the neck until you start to figure out how to do it. So just sign up, do your next transaction, do them one at a time. Don't try and, start in the middle of your transactions. Just make a commitment to launch this thing and, keep all of your paperwork in one place. There's so many benefits. I'm just kind of running through the bullet points in my head, Tim. There's probably 10 more ways to use this thing that we haven't even thought about.
Well, I'm just thinking in terms of if I was going on a listing presentation, right? I mean, I could email them a pre-listing pack ahead of time. I could email them all the listing paperwork. And just the fact that I had the ability to do that, even if they didn't even open the email, let alone, look at what I sent them, just the fact that I'm able to offer that technology immediately puts me at a different level when I'm trying to win that seller's business. And when I'm on that listing presentation, I could actually use this DotLoop system as part of my presentation, showing them about how we keep paperwork, how we track things, how we're more efficient, how we can, as a result of this, we have buyers that make offers faster. I mean, there's all different ways you could show this to a potential seller as a real powerful tool for them. Sure, so that's very cool.
You want to make professional money? Be the professional, you know.
Bottom line.
So step out from the crowd. This is one of the ways to do it. I mean, in a competitive situation, all that has to happen is the next agent they're interviewing shows up a little bit late, a little bit disorganized, and you're done. The listing is yours. So I love it. I'd sign up today if I was, selling full-time instead of coaching full-time. I'd say bring it on.
And for you, if you skeptics out there, Julie and I, how much are you paying us today for this call, Austin?
Oh, I don't know. It sounds like my bill's ringing up. Yeah.
That's right. Nothing. Okay. So we are doing this out of honest-to-God enthusiasm and belief in what he's offering. And frankly, I had a lot of people that said that they looked thoroughly into this, and they reinforced that this is definitely the next thing that all realtors should be adopting, and brokers. How about this? If you have agents that are resisting, just make it mandatory. This is just a no-brainer. Probably going to save you money on errors and emissions insurance, and you could probably, dare I say, reduce your staff and your overhead just out of the pure efficiencies that this would bring to your business. So, Austin, any closing thoughts before we wrap this call up?
No, I mean, I think you guys pretty much covered it. One thing that stuck out to me as a pattern throughout the call and some of the advice that you gave to the people on the line, in particular Julie, is get the most bang for your buck, simplify the way that you do business, and that just so happens to be our tagline and our vision is to simplify the life of a real estate agent. We've tried to take what was once a very complicated process, and we've tried to simplify it in one technology so that you can truly learn this thing instantly. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at 1-888-DOT-LOOP, and we have people there live on the phone that would be glad to walk you through any other additional questions that you may have. And, thanks again for all of your time. It's been my pleasure.
Okay, great. So, guys, those of you who are going to the May 7th event in Laguna Beach, Mr. Austin Allison, and that is his real name. You sound like an actor, by the way, with that name.
I know. I've heard author quite a bit, too.
Author Allison?
Yeah,
because
author.
of the name.
They say it sounds like an author, yeah.
Yeah, Harlequin novel author name maybe, but in any event. So, for those of you attending the May 7th event in Laguna Beach, which is now completely full, he is going to be there speaking and answering questions and being interrogated by all of those of you in attendance. So hopefully this information that we delivered to you today was in alignment with what you are anticipating to be a useful tool for your real estate businesses and brokerages. Guys, this is the way, and we've been, essentially preaching from the highest mountain. This is the way the industry is going. Realtors will always be part of the transaction as long as we keep ourselves relevant. The days of being able to force buyers and sellers to follow our rules, our guidelines, this is the way I do business. This is, you have to follow my 14 procedures in order to actually see a house. Those days are over, okay? In order for you guys to stay relevant and for you to get ahead and capture market share and obviously help a lot of people and make a lot of money, you're going to have to listen to what the buyers and sellers tell you that they want, and there is no question they're telling you that they want this. So by all means, check out DotLoop. There's a button on the webinar there that you can click to go over and watch this video. But as Austin said, he definitely wants you to call, have a conversation with one of his guys, and initiate the process. This is dirt cheap. It's kind of a no-brainer, thing for all of you guys to do. Again, we don't, beyond this phone call, not our thing, so call him directly. Julie and I have no financial interest in this company or, frankly, whether or not you guys subscribe or not. We're just genuinely enthusiastic about what this technology could bring to the real estate industry. So, Mr. Austin Allison, I sincerely thank you for being our superstar this week.
Likewise. It's been a pleasure.
So on behalf of Julie, myself, and all the faculty and staff of Harris Real Estate University, thank you sincerely for joining us for today's superstar interview.